She'd been told it was junk, a derelict windmill on a wind-scoured prairie no one claimed. Not even the county that walked away from it 50 years earlier. But when widowed baker Clara Beaumont hauled herself up the creaking wooden ladder for the first time and pried loose a warped panel in the mill's gear room, she discovered not just silver ingots and sapphires, but a 200-year-old outlaw cache worth $180 million that would secure her son's dreams for life. Before we dive in, hit that follow button, because tomorrow's tale is going to leave you speechless. The October sleet slashed across the windshield of Clara Beaumont's 14-year-old Subaru as she wrestled the narrow dirt track that locals called the Old Mill Road. Her 7-year-old son, Leo, rode in the back, hugging a plush eagle, eyes huge as the gusts rattled the windows and the endless Dakota grasslands bent like an angry sea. Clara's knuckles whitened on the wheel with every rut. The phone's GPS flickered, half dead from the patchy signal. "Are we close, Mom?" Leo asked, nose smushed to the glass. Clara caught his reflection in the mirror. "Almost, buddy. Few more minutes." Truth was, she wasn't sure where there even was. 2 weeks earlier, a crisp envelope had arrived from a law office in Bismarck, North Dakota. Her great-uncle Amos, a man she'd seen once at a funeral when she was 6, had died and bequeathed her something. That something turned out to be a windmill. A decommissioned, forsaken windmill on a patch of nowhere so remote that satellite maps shrugged at its outline. Clara had nearly tossed the letter. She frosted cakes at a tiny bakery in Nebraska, scraping by after the accident that took her husband. The last thing she needed was upkeep on some prairie eyesore, but the attorney swore there were no liens. The mill had been stripped of function in 1971 and erased from every ledger. It was hers, no strings, worthless as it sounded. So here she was, chasing a storm across the plains with her boy, gambling on the planet's least promising legacy. The sleet thickened until the wipers surrendered. Through the blur, she finally saw it, a gaunt, skeletal tower clawing at the sky from a low rise, linked to the road by a washed-out gravel causeway that looked ready to dissolve. "Is that our windmill?" Leo whispered, or overtaking his fatigue. Clara eased onto the muddy shoulder and cut the engine. They stared in silence. The structure rose maybe 70 feet, its faded red paint flaking like old blood. The stone base house clung to it like an afterthought, shingles scattered by decades of wind, every window either shattered or nailed shut. It looked precisely like what it was, something the world had forgotten for half a century. "Let's go explore our castle," Clara said, summoning cheer she didn't feel. They dashed through the sleet, Clara lugging their duffels while Leo stomped every puddle in triumph. The mill house door sagged on leather hinges. It took Clara's shoulder and a grunt to force it inward. Inside, the air slapped them with dust, mouse nests, and the ghost of grain. But the floor was mostly solid. "It's a bandit fortress," Leo shouted, voice bouncing off bare beams. Clara dropped the bags and surveyed the ruin. Toppled benches, coyote scat, drifts of silt in the corners. Beyond a splintered archway rose the tower itself, an oak ladder bolted to the inner wall, vanishing into shadow. "Can we climb?" Leo was already halfway there. "Easy, Captain. Let me check first." The rungs held firm, though they moaned under Clara's boots. She ascended slowly, testing each grip, Leo's small hands right behind. 10 feet. 20. 30. The ladder spiraled upward. Clara's calves screamed, and Leo's breath came in excited puffs, but neither called for a break. At last, they stepped into the cap room at the summit. The massive gear wheels that once turned the sails were stripped away, leaving a hollow dome ringed by cracked skylights. Even through the dust-caked panes, the vista stole their breath, rolling amber prairie stretching to every horizon, thunderheads boiling far to the west. "Mom, look!" Leo pointed at the plank wall where someone had gouged letters and a year, **A, Chem, 1968 **. "Amos McAllister," Clara whispered. Her great-uncle. She traced the cuts, wondering what had drawn him to this lonely tower half a century ago. As her fingertips slid along the grain, she felt a hairline crack that didn't belong. She pushed, a plank pivoted inward on hidden hinges, exposing a cavity no bigger than a bread box. Whoa! Leo squeezed beside her. Outlaw trapdoor! Clara reached in and drew out an oilskin bundle, heavier than it had any right to be. She peeled it back. A leather ledger, warped but legible, and beneath it a palmful of silver discs that caught the weak light like moonlit water. Clara lifted one coin. It was thick as a $50, stamped with a crude bison and the date **1824***. Mom, Leo breathed, real bandit silver. Clara cracked the ledger. The first page was penned in her great-uncle's tidy hand. Asterisk to whoever finds this, let it be kin. What I've tucked here is the sample. The true hoard sleeps beneath, where the dust devils dance along the footing. Jesse James's lost payroll, cached for 2 centuries. I unearthed it in '68 but lacked the nerve to claim it. Maybe you've got the grit I didn't. Asterisk. Clara's pulse hammered as she read aloud. Jesse James. Even she knew the legend, the Missouri outlaw whose train robbery loot vanished after the gang scattered in 1876. Mom, Leo's voice shrank, are we millionaires? Clara met his eyes, then stared at the silver in her palm. I don't know, buddy, but we're checking where the dust devils meet the foundation. By the time they descended the ladder, the sleet had melted into a damp hush. Clara's mind spun. This had to be a prank. Great-uncle Amos had been a postmaster, not a desperado. Yet the coins were warm from her grip, undeniably real. She parked Leo inside the mill house with orders to stay put and fetched the headlamp from the Subaru. The journal spoke of where the dust devils dance along the footing. She'd seen the hollows on arrival, scalloped scoops in the earth where wind carved the base of the stone foundation. She circled to the north side, boots sinking in cold mud. Water from the storm had pooled ankle-deep in the scoops. Clara knelt, headlamp slicing the gloom, and swept the beam along the stones. The mortar was ancient, pocked with prairie soil, until one patch. A rectangle no wider than a grave marker, the stones cleaner, the cement fresher, maybe 40 years instead of 100. Her breath fogged the light. She scraped with her fingernails, the mortar flaked. Beneath, a hairline seam. She snatched a rusted crowbar from the car and levered. The patch was only a veneer, it crumbled to reveal a steel hatch set flush into the bedrock. Mom! Leo's shout drifted from the doorway. Anything yet? Stay inside. Clara's voice cracked with adrenaline. The hatch was pitted but solid, sealed by a single iron latch still slick with old grease. Clara hauled a shaky breath and slid it free. The lid yawned open on silent hinges. Beyond lay a rough-hewn passage chiseled into the limestone, angling down into velvet dark. The passage was bone-dry, it had to sit above the water table. Clara had to duck low, headlamp jittering over chisel scars in the limestone. 20 feet in, the shaft widened into a cavern the size of a boxcar. And there it was. Iron-bound crates, scores of them, heaped like cordwood along the walls. Most had surrendered to rot, lids split, spilling silver ingots, turquoise pendants, gold doubloons, and rubies the size of quail eggs across the floor in a glittering carpet. In the middle stood a modern footlocker, army surplus, no more than 30 years old. On it lay a plastic document sleeve. Clara's fingers shook as she unzipped it. Inside, another ledger in her great-uncle's hand. Asterisk, I stumbled on this pocket in '68 while chasing a coyote den. The cash was pristine, 200 years untouched. I lifted only what kept the lights on, paid for my sister's surgery, got my nephew through trade school. Taking the rest felt like robbing a church. I've spent decades in county records and railroad archives. This is the 1876 Missouri Pacific payroll Jesse James lifted outside Council Bluffs. By finder's law on unclaimed land, it's yours. All my surveys, deeds, and letters from salvage attorneys are in the locker. Decide what's right. Fortune carries weight. Spend it well. Amos *. Clara dropped to her knees amid the silver. She scooped a fistful of coins, they poured through her fingers like liquid moonlight. Each piece worth hundreds, maybe thousands, and there were tens of thousands. She pictured the cramped duplex in Lincoln, the bakery's flickering neon, Leo's crooked front tooth she couldn't afford to cap, the Subaru with 220,000 miles and a death rattle. She pictured every sorry, buddy, not this year. She chose a small, intact crate, filled it with ingots and a fist-sized emerald the color of summer wheat. Enough to rewrite tomorrow. The rest would need surveyors, land attorneys, maybe the Smithsonian. Amos had left the road map. When she crawled out and rolled the hatch shut, Leo was hopping at the mill house door. "Did you find the bandit's gold?" Clara set the crate down, flipped the lid. Leo's gasp echoed off the rafters. "We're gonna be okay now, right, Mom?" She crushed him against her, tears soaking his hair. "Better than okay, Captain." The roadside in 20 miles south felt like another planet. Clara stashed the crate under the Subaru's spare tire, buried in flannel shirts. She stayed up past midnight on her cracked tablet, chasing county plats, railroad manifests, and salvage statutes. Everything Amos wrote checked out. The 1876 heist had vanished from history, no claimant, no lien. Leo slept across the room, $1 silver clutched like a worry stone. Tomorrow she'd call the attorneys Amos had listed, maybe a university archaeologist. Tonight she stood at the window, watching the windmill silhouette against the stars. A single red aircraft light still blinked from the cap, solar-powered, ignored by the world. Her phone lit up, her late husband's brother, Dale, demanding to know why she'd pulled Leo from school without notice. She almost laughed. By morning she'd have counsel who could silence Dale with a single letter. By next week Leo would have braces and a college fund. By spring they'd own a house with windows that closed all the way. But even as she mapped out the future, Amos's warning rang in her ears, *fortune carries weight. Next morning, Clara drove into Bismarck and stepped into the offices of Halvorsen and Sons, the firm that had probated Amos's will. Old Mr. Halvorsen, white hair, wire spectacles, nearly toppled his coffee when she slid 3 silver ingots and the ledger across his blotter. "Lord Almighty," he wheezed, cradling a coin like it was spun glass. Amos muttered about something for the girl, but this. "We do this clean," Clara said. "Title, taxes, trusts, foundations. My uncle was right, this money has a job." Halvorsen nodded, already reaching for the phone. "We'll bring in land use counsel, IRS specialists, railroad historians. This'll be a circus, but we'll run it right." "I'm ready," Clara answered. And she was. The next fortnight was a fever dream. Experts verified every detail in Amos's notes. The crates held the 1876 Missouri Pacific payroll, $400,000 in period coin and bullion, untouched since the gang buried it. Coins alone topped 60 million, gems and period firearms pushed the haul past 180 million. Word leaked, naturally. Satellite trucks parked outside the inn. Clara hired off-duty deputies. The university begged for artifacts. Dale, her late husband's brother, phoned, suddenly eager to co-parent. Her new attorneys ended that call in 4 minutes flat. Leo stayed steady. One night, over diner pancakes, he said, "We should give some away, like Uncle Amos did." Clara squeezed his syrup-sticky hand. "That's the plan, Captain." They founded the Amos McAllister Trust, scholarships for trade school kids, grants for prairie restoration. They gifted key pieces to the State Historical Society so school buses could roll up and kids could touch history. They kept enough for breathing room, nothing flashy. Clara bought a sturdy 2-story in a quiet Lincoln neighborhood, big enough for Leo's drum set, small enough to feel like home. She left the bakery, not for leisure, but to enroll in anthropology at the university, hungry to learn the land stories. The windmill itself became their monument. Clara had the stone repointed, the sails rebuilt as a silent sculpture. The base house reopened as the McAllister Prairie Museum, exhibits on outlaw trails, railroad expansion, and the quiet postmaster who'd kept a secret for 50 years. Digging through Amos's files, she learned he'd mailed anonymous checks for decades, a cousin's nursing degree, a neighbor's roof, a stranger's insulin. He was the real gold, Clara told Leo as they stood in the finished gallery. The silver just let him shine. On the first anniversary, mother and son climbed the restored ladder at dusk. The cap room gleamed, new glass, fresh paint. Where Amos had carved **A, M 1968**, Clara had affixed a bronze plate. *Amos McAllister 1909, 2023 *. The red aircraft beacon blinked across the darkening plains, gilding waves of grass in copper light. "Do you think Uncle Amos knew we'd find it?" Leo asked. Clara pictured the soft-spoken man she'd met once at a picnic, the one who'd pressed a butterscotch into her 6-year-old hand. "I think he trusted blood would show up eventually," she said. "And he trusted we'd know what to do. Are you happy, Mom?" Clara looked at her son, gapped grin, future wide open. She thought of the first scholarship kid already welding pipelines, the families who'd never get another shut-off notice, the tourists who left the museum whispering. "Yeah, buddy," she said, voice catching. "I'm happy." As they climbed down the ladder, a cluster of visitors was gathering for the Twilight Windmill tour. Clara caught the guide's voice drifting up the shaft, tales of train robbers and blizzards, of buried payrolls and steadfast keepers, of a postmaster who guarded a secret and a baker who kept the promise. But at its heart it was a story about love. The love that made Amos stash the fortune for kin he'd never meet. And the love that made Clara spend it not just on Leo and herself, but on every life they could lift. The red beacon swept the darkening prairie, same as it had for 70 years, warning low-flying crop dusters, marking the mile for lonely ranchers, standing sentinel over generations of silence. Now it carried one more message: the real gold isn't underground, it's in the choices we make above it. 6 months on, the **Amos McAllister Prairie Museum** had become a regional treasure. School buses rolled in every Tuesday. Grad students pored over the ledgers. Families picnicked beneath the motionless sails, kids chasing grasshoppers where outlaws once rode. Clara gave tours most weekends, recounting Jesse James and the ghost payroll, but lingering longest on Amos McAllister, the soft-spoken clerk who mailed envelopes of hope for half a century. One overcast Saturday, a stooped gentleman in a frayed Carhartt coat waited until the crowd thinned. He leaned on a cedar cane, eyes the pale blue of winter sky. "I knew Amos," he said quietly. 45 years, same coffee clutch at the cafe. Clara's pulse skipped. "You did?" "Name's Floyd. We sorted mail together. He'd vanish some weekends, visiting the old mill," he'd say. And whenever a neighbor hit hard times, an envelope showed up. No return address. We all knew. "Did he ever talk about the windmill?" Clara asked. "Once," Floyd said. "Right before the cancer took him. Said he was leaving it to family, that the right pair of hands would find it. Said the best presents are the ones you open slow." Clara swallowed the lump in her throat. Every week she uncovered another layer of the man who'd changed their lives. That night, in the warm kitchen of their new house, real oak table, no wobbly legs, Leo asked over spaghetti, "Mom, what if the hatch had been empty?" "We'd have kept baking, kept scraping by," Clara said. "But are you glad we found it?" Leo twirled a noodle. "I'm glad we get to help people. And I'm glad we learned about Uncle Amos. That's pretty cool too." Clara ruffled his hair. Cheesy, but true. Later, after Leo was asleep, Clara sat at her desk approving grants, a widowed welder needing daycare so she could finish Viotech, a rural clinic short on chemo funds, a tiny county museum about to shutter. Each click echoed Amos's anonymous envelopes. Tomorrow, breakfast with soil scientists planning a native grass replanting, lunch with trust attorneys expanding the scholarship pool, afternoon with a PBS crew filming a women who found the West. A life unimaginable the day the Subaru rattled up that washed-out track. Then again, Amos probably never pictured it either, the afternoon in '68 when he chased a coyote and changed everything. Sometimes the truest tales needed decades to unfold. Clara stood at the kitchen window, watching the red beacon arc across the star-drunk prairie. Built to warn crop dusters off the ridge, it now carried a softer signal, *, keep going, someone's waiting on the other side, *. Hope. Second chances. The quiet proof that a widowed baker could still rise, that a forgotten postmaster could reroute lives, that a little boy could grow up believing kindness was the real currency. Magic wasn't the silver under the limestone. Magic was Amos slipping 20s into birthday cards for 50 years. Magic was Clara choosing grants over gold toilets. Magic was Leo learning that having enough meant making sure everyone else did too. The light swept again, steady as a heartbeat. Whatever dust devils came, it would keep blinking, just like Amos had. Just like Clara would. Just like Leo would, someday. Some troves were meant to be cracked open. Others were meant to be scattered. And the best ones kept multiplying, hand to hand, one quiet yes at a time. Next morning brought a surprise, a streaming giant wanted the rights to their story. Clara's gut said *no*, too many cameras already. But Leo piped up over oatmeal. What if we say yes, but they have to give half the fee to the trust? And they have to tell Uncle Amos's part, not just the train robbers. Clara stared. When did you get so shrewd? You taught me, he said, mouthful. And that, Clara realized, was the real motherlode, not the payroll that paid the bills, but the compass that pointed every choice north. Amos's legacy wasn't in the cavern. It lived in every scholarship kid who'd never met him but carried his name on a certificate. The windmill stood proud against the dawn, sails frozen in greeting. No longer a ruin, no longer a secret. Somewhere, Clara was certain, Amos McAllister was tipping his postal cap and grinning. What happens next will show how a cash meant for one became a lifeline for thousands. Stay tuned for the ripple. If you're loving the ride, like, share, follow for more. A year later, the documentary dropped to rave reviews, not for the outlaw shoot-'em-up the studio first pitched, but for the deeper cut Clara demanded, women lifting women across a century. The crew had dug up gold of another kind. They tracked down grey-haired mechanics and nurses who still had the envelopes. She paid for my diesel program, a burly shop owner told the camera, voice cracking. Said it was a postal grant. Took me 30 years to learn whose stamp was on it. My wife's chemo, a rancher said, hat in hands. Bills just vanished. Amos heard about it at the cafe, I guess. Clip after clip painted the postmaster as the prairie's unseen angel. The film braided his quiet decades with Clara and Leo's louder ones, creating something bigger than a heist reel. Premiere night, the ** McAllister Prairie Museum ** glowed. The base house brimmed with trust scholars, county historians, and families who'd never worry about a shut-off notice again. Leo, 11 now, all elbows and opinions, worked the room in a miniature museum polo, explaining wind patterns to wide-eyed Cub Scouts and refilling lemonade like he'd been born to it. You'll leave them the same thing Eleanor left us, Rachel said, closing her laptop. A story. A choice. And the proof that one person's quiet courage can echo for generations. Maya tilted her head. But what if they don't find a cave full of gold? Rachel smiled. Then they'll find the journal in the museum. They'll read about the grandfather who found his mother's war letters in a showbox. The nurse who discovered a stranger's kindness paid for her scrubs. They'll see that every entry is a coin in a different kind of treasure chest, one that never runs dry because people keep adding to it. Maya considered this, then nodded like she was sealing a pact with the future. Years rolled on like tides. The ** Eleanor Hartley Foundation ** opened a second campus in Portland, classrooms, a women's shelter, a maritime lab where high school girls rebuilt boat engines and learned to read charts. Maya, 16 now, taught Saturday sailing to kids who'd never seen the ocean. She still kept the first gold coin in a velvet pouch, but she wore a tiny silver lighthouse pendant every day, engraved on the back, *pass it on. Rachel earned her PhD in maritime archaeology and led summer digs off the Cape, training single moms whose tuition the foundation covered. Every artifact they lifted, barnacled pewter, a child's wooden doll, went straight to the museum with a new plaque, found by the 2041 Hartley Scholars. The journal filled 3 volumes, then 10. Staff scanned every page into a public digital archive titled **Treasures That Travel Light.** A middle schooler in Nebraska cited it for a speech on resilience. A veterans group in California printed excerpts on pocket cards. A bride in Scotland read one aloud at her wedding. One spring evening, Maya, 22, sun-streaked hair, masters in environmental policy, stood in the lamp room with her own daughter, Lily, age 5. The beam swept across a calm sea. "Mom," Lily whispered, "is this where the pirates hid the gold?" Maya knelt. "Some of it. But the real treasure is downstairs." She led Lily to the journal station, now a touchscreen kiosk glowing with thousands of stories. "Pick any page." Lily tapped. An entry from 2038 appeared. "My treasure was the neighbor who shoveled my walk after chemo. I paid it forward by teaching his son to read. M. Alvarez, age 61 *. Lily's eyes widened. "That's magic." "Better than magic," Maya said. "It's **us. Below, Rachel, grey now, but still climbing the spiral stairs every dawn, watched them through the glass floor and felt Eleanor's smile in the salt wind. The lighthouse kept shining. The journal kept growing. The treasure kept giving. And somewhere out on the dark water, a small boat caught the beam, corrected course, and sailed safely home. What would you want to leave them? Litu kicked at a loose floorboard. Not just the silver, maybe choices like Uncle Amos left us. Not the payroll, but the power to decide what it's for. Clara's heart flipped. That's one hell of a legacy, kid. I'm starting now, Leo declared, chin set like only an 11-year-old can manage. I'm gonna learn history, money smarts, and how to help people. So when it's my turn, I'm ready. Clara pulled him in. You're already there, Captain. The windmill never quit. Plane still banked by its red eye. Tour buses still rolled in. Families still let kids climb the ladder to touch the sky. But for Clara and Leo it was home base, proof that the heaviest load sometimes hide wings. That the real cash is forged in character, not limestone. That a broke baker could inherit a skeleton of rust and find inside it everything she'd ever fought for: purpose, people, the chance to rewrite someone else's ending. A chain of quiet yeses stretching from a train robber's buried sacks to a postmaster's midnight envelopes to a widow's last-ditch road trip to a boy's wide-open future. Every dust the beacon blinked across the plains, guardian of light just like Amos had been, just like Clara had become, just like Leo would grow to be. A promise in every flash, treasure found becomes treasure shared. Kindness ripples like wind over wheat. Every ending is just the next handoff. The greatest troves aren't locked in vaults. They're launched into the world to land where they're needed most. Amos knew it. Clara learned it. Leo would live it, generation to generation, heart to heart. The light kept sweeping. Anyone can inherit a wreck and strike priceless if they dare to look past the rust and see the horizon inside. As the documentary credits faded and the museum fell hushed, Clara Beaumont stood in the cap room of the windmill that rewrote everything. Once she had been a grieving baker, counting quarters and dreading sunrise. Now she was a steward of stories, a multiplier of chances, a woman who understood that fortune isn't counted in ingots but in futures unlocked. The red beacon traced its ancient circle across the dark, same as it had for 70 years. But now it carried extra cargo, Amos's patience made visible, Clara's grit given shape, Leo's tomorrow taking flight. Proof that the most useless inheritance can sprout miracles when someone is brave enough to climb. Real wealth isn't market price. It's lives rerouted, doors opened, mercy multiplied. Amos McAllister had guarded that truth for half a century. Clara Beaumont had set it loose. Leo McAllister would carry it forward into a world hungry for light. The windmill stood tall against the endless sky, no longer a ruin, never again ignored. It had warned pilots off ridges, sheltered outlaw silver through decades, and cradled family secrets through lifetimes. But its truest calling was this, showing a widowed mother and her son they were never as broke or as alone as the numbers said. Some troves are meant to be cracked open. Others are meant to be scattered. The best ones transform not just bank balances but bloodlines. Not just 2 lives but thousands touched by the wake of one postmaster's patience and one baker's purpose. The light swept on, steady and sure, a prairie lighthouse on a starlit sea. Everyone who saw it understood. Miracles still happen. Treasures still wait. And sometimes, just sometimes, a worthless windmill holds everything a struggling mother needs to change the world. One blink at a time. One life at a time. One choice at a time. Forever and always. The beacon swept on. Up next 2 more stories of grit, grace, and buried hope. Click to keep the journey alive, and hit subscribe if you believe the greatest treasures are the ones we set free.